So welcome everybody, my name is Paul and a lot of people have seen my channel. It's a small channel and I talk a lot about different aspects of ancient history and mysteries and so on, and what I talk about is perception. And over the years, long before 2012, I got on YouTube and I started talking about various changes that are going on the planet and so on, and there was a lot of hoopla, as you know, around the year 2000 about the major changes that might be happening, and there's always been this prediction that something might happen, could happen, the world's going to change as we know it, and so on. And over the years, I've connected a lot of dots. I'm not a know-it-all. I just connect a lot of dots because I'm more of a reporter. I don't have a lot of advanced degrees in particular subjects, but what I do is I have a good broad understanding of how things work and even some physics and so on. I studied electronics, and I listen to top excerpts about anything I want to know about. A lot of people make fun of YouTube and so on, but truthfully, if you look around, there are fantastic authors, brilliant people, researchers, up to the minute scientists, travelers, world travelers, who have long interviews with people online, and you can listen to these people and get some incredible information. Now, I've talked a little bit about cycles, and we're in a cycle right now. And ever since the year 2000, and even before that, they talked about 1998 and the end of the world and so on. Here we are in a really crazy situation in the world right now. And basically, in a way, it's worse than I thought, really. And there's some aspects of it that are even worse than I thought, and some aspects that, like, okay, frankly, I thought maybe the economy would totally collapse by now, but we're damn close, and it's really breathing like fumes, basically. And I keep reminding people of some really important things, and I laugh about it, but we're in a really serious situation here because any kind of when there's a major transition in any part of your life or in a country or whatever, a family, it always involves a tremendous amount of variables and upsets. And if we're not trained to keep our mind and just keep breathing and just be still and not judge so much and get through it and like paddle that canoe down the river, just be careful, avoiding the rocks and so on, it's our job to be conscious of our life and figure out what's going on around us. And there's a lot of things that people like me keep track of, and they're just things going on in the world that if people understood what really was happening, it'd be like freak them right out. And there's a whole lot of things that I've talked about. Now, why would I say certain things like that? Because, you have to go into hundreds and hundreds of hours of listening and books I've read and so on, and I won't want to get into that. But what I try to tell people is, look, there's things that you can find out for yourself now using the searching and so on and listening and books and so on, that you can understand a lot of what I'm talking about, and others, people like me, that yes, there's something going on right now, and it's been going on. And a lot of people use this word apocalypse and revelation. Okay, basically, information is being revealed because we're getting into the point where there's a certain amount of transparency, and there's always nasty people on the earth, and there's always just people who just don't do nice things, to say the least. And those people don't want to get known. And, when people were ignorant, and there was only, back in my day when I was a teenager, there were like 3 channels, and you got about a half-hour news, maybe an hour if you're lucky, and now and then on Sunday afternoon, evening, you might have 60 Minutes or Walter Cronkite or something like that. And that's it. You get told a little bit, and you don't know much about what's going on in the world. And meanwhile, there's in the 60s, there was all kinds of stuff going on, and they were going into space, and the Cold War, they're building nuclear weapons and underground bases, and then so look, this is April 30th, April 29th. Publish it tomorrow, the end of the first quarter, the first 3-4 months of this year, 2022. It's just an incredible thing, and so many things that I predicted long ago and got unfriended for and people were like rejecting me and calling me a crazy person or something. They've all come true. In fact, some of them are worse than I thought. So they ain't over yet. So I've always recommended for people to try to do a little homesteading and live a little simpler because, you know, it's like when you got to travel through a situation here, and it really behooves us to thin down a little bit because, you know, you can't travel and you can't adjust to changing situations if you have a whole lot of burdens, of various kinds of burdens. And one of them is possessions. I'm a realtor and I see homes and I go, oh, they're not going to ever sell this house anytime soon because there's just so many things there. It would just take months to get ready to sell a house, some of these, you know. So I want to talk a little bit about some important things. I got a little list here, and I'll try to make it kind of brief and kind of cover quickly here the situations that are things that people don't pay attention are the astronomical events and the geophysical events that are going on and the solar events that are going on in our solar system right now. A lot of people do not keep track of this stuff, but there are people online who are experts in this field, and their access to many, many different incredibly detailed publications and online sites and cameras looking at the sun and various kinds of filters and everything. And there's a lot of telescopes out there and various kinds of observations going on about gamma rays and radiances and how much light, how much magnetic energy gets down to the ground on Earth and so on. And we can't see these radiances. There's really, really, really high frequency, just like 5G and so on. That's a whole other subject. But we're talking about extremely high frequency, and high frequency means high energy, and literally it can affect the hairs on your skin if the electric charge is intense enough in your brain and everything. And there's subtle. In order for this technology to work here, the 5G and all that cell technology and so on, there has to be a complete saturation so that any signal, any detail, those bank credit card numbers and all those things get transferred accurately and perfectly. So it's kind of like a soup of electrical energy that's going on, and you're better off if you just get away from as much as possible. I know I use technology and so on, but I live in the country. Trees and the shelter of trees and various kinds of rock formations and so on, and various kinds of way you have your home set up can mitigate a lot of that kind of energy. Now, the Earth's magnetic field is shifting, and without getting into a lot of long explanation here, there's someone up here. The North Pole of the planet, as it appears as the sphere, points in one way, but the magnetic pole is off to the side of the North Magnetic Pole, is off the side of the actual physical pole. So what that means is that in aviation and navigation, depending on where you are on the surface of the Earth, you have to magnetically adjust your compass because you're going to be tracking whether it's magnetic north or whether it's true north. So that magnetic pole is shifting and has been shifting for quite some time now, and it's just going at a really strange rate. It's heading way farther away from the physical North Pole. So that's a real problem because if it gets to a certain point where the electromagnetic field of the planet not only affects our navigation, but affects a whole bunch of data transfer, and affects the weather and the jet stream and the way the cold is and the ionization of the atmosphere and so on. So this is a very, very important thing. And not only has the magnetic pole moved, and it's really getting quite far into Russia now, away from the regular physical North Pole, that in the past on the Earth, those magnetic poles have actually flipped. It's not a theory. It's definitely happened, and it's way overdue. It happens on the planet sometimes, and probably because it's influenced by other things that are going on in the solar system, which we'll discuss in a short minute here. But it's weakening, and if the magnetic field of the planet gets too weak, what happens is that intense solar radiance that comes in starts affecting us physically, because it's really high energy, just like microwave energy, billions of times a second. And it's just like the 5G. I mean, the solar radiance is, if it gets too high and too high a frequency and the wrong frequencies and gets low enough on the Earth and not filtered by our atmosphere or not shielded by the electric field of the Earth, then that's a serious problem. It's a very, very serious problem because literally it can kill animals, can kill birds, can kill people. It can cause all kinds of other kinds of disorientations and so on. So we're talking about a rather serious problem. Now, a lot of people don't realize this, but for many, many parts of history in America and around the world, people lived underground. They lived in caves. For sometimes there are generations of people that lived. Can you imagine that? Your family, everybody's family, as long as you can remember, they all lived in this cave, and they got up now and then, but they all slept in the cave, and now and then they'd get out and do their thing or whatever, but most of the time they're in the cave. Underground residences. There's a lot of them around the world. And there's really, really vast, big tunnels. And right where I live in Virginia, there's some natural caverns that are absolutely enormous. Really, really could fit thousands of people in them, or they have like huge connection. And some of them are really dangerous, and some of them have very open areas that, with a little bit of caution, you can get around quite successfully as long as you don't go too deep in the cave, you know. But the reason people did that was protection from the sun. You see, the sun has a history of blasting and causing some serious problems, and that's something to pay attention to. Now, I want to move on to speaking of the sun, the whole entire solar system is getting affected, see? Now, that's a physical fact, and you can look that up and find out these top scientists as things are going on Jupiter and on Neptune, and the change of the red spot on Jupiter happened, and a lot of stuff going on in the solar system. So our sun enters in certain parts of the galaxy as it moves around. We're just going about our day, shopping or whatever. And that sun every single day gets moving on thousands and thousands of miles through space. And the whole planet, all the solar system is going with it, drifting through space, round and round the galaxy. And it takes 250 million years to go around the galaxy. And along the way, it goes through a heck of a lot of stuff and debris that's flying through space and so on. So this is what the natives from past civilizations told us, that every now and then, and it's not even really predictable exactly when, but now and then certain extreme catastrophes happen on a planet, and basically life starts over and a whole bunch of extinctions happen. I mean, it's like even certain species of humans are no longer around, so it's just a little bit of a heads up here where we're at. Now, the Earth wobble, the growing season, we're going to get into some serious problems here, because if the planetary jet stream is shifting crazy and it's dipping down toward the equator and it's doing some really weird things, so basically when it's like a spinning top. If the spinning top, you just touch it a little bit and it gets out of whack, and then that thing is going to go low like that, you know. And our Earth is spinning, and they can track this spinning, and it has a very, very slight wobble. It just slowly wobbles on its axis, you know. And if it ever were to tilt or got affected some way, or some other kind of shock from the right kind of a hit from an asteroid or something, even if the Earth just tilts a tiny, tiny bit, or if it slows down its rotation just a tiny, tiny bit, all the oceans are going to start slopping around and slapping around the cities and knocking them down, and it's happened on this Earth before. So we really don't know for sure what kind of a time we're in, but we're definitely living in some very interesting times. Now, some people say, well, you know, the Earth isn't going to change as we know it, you know, or whatever. But there are lots of places in the world right now that the world has ended for them. I mean, their houses got wiped out, and the whole towns got wiped out. There's many kinds of things that do that. There's volcanoes, there's tsunamis, there's floods, and there's earthquakes. All those kind of things can just knock out a whole town. And in many parts of the world it has happened. So I'm living in a really quiet, peaceful, beautiful area out here in Virginia. It's just hardly any problems out here of any kind. And But meanwhile, there's places in the world right now that it's just absolute chaos, and the weather is really freaking people out. So I want to make sure people take everything I'm saying and just adapt your own life to it, because there's a major changes ahead. We got some serious problems. I mean, if without getting political here, you know, it's like when the roller coaster starts going down, it'll go a few ups and downs, but eventually it's going to stop. And you just feel like, well, we're on this roller coaster, and okay, and then okay, where's it going to end up here? Now, I have this saying here: in a big storm, it's the big trees that go down first, and the little grasses and shrubs, usually they're fine. Now, live simpler, be calmer, be community oriented, because any kind of difficult problem that happens, we're so fortunate in America. I mean, we have this beautiful, sweet lives, many of us, really gentle, comfortable lives. But there are so many places in the world that it's just really, really bad right now, and it's getting worse. So count your blessings and be willing to participate in a major transition, and we need to share certain information with each other. That's why I get out there. I know I don't have a big audience. Maybe 5 or 6 people are listening to it at one given time or whatever, but we share, and it's a continuous reminder that maybe something I've said in a way that I've said it, or something is a way that will motivate somebody or inspire somebody, because it's all about our perception. We have to have a perception and a clarity of where we're going. And there's things happening on this planet. I mean, I want to talk a little bit about space activity. There's stuff going on in space for a really long time. There's inventions, there's secrets, there's technology that they got, and we're not alone on Earth. We're not alone in the solar system. It's been known for a long, long time, and there's plenty of documents, and there's plenty of things. There's even video coming out now. You can pretend you don't see it, but it's not just what's being said, but the people who are saying it. There's retired military people. There's people who got insider information, who worked on certain projects like underground bases. These people are coming forward. Trust me, there's a whole lot of stuff going on right now on Earth that people will just like blow their mind. There's inventions that have been approved. There's secret technology. So there is a lot of disinformation, and it's up to us to be clear. And I'm just trying to be one voice out here. So I hope people will like and share. Let me just go through my notes here. I don't want to make these too long and boring. But I want to talk a little bit about the positive aspect, the spiritual aspect, because at these times, the history of Earth is very, very old, and the planet, the societies, and the cultures have been passing down traditions and teachings for a very, very long time. So we have on our side, through these transitions, we have the wisdom that we can learn, ancient teachings, and the spiritual aspect, because a lot of the sages that have come before us, they are wise people, and they understood all these things. They understood. They had their tradition. Some of them kept incredible records. They would sing, and they had memorized a whole big huge spiel, like the whole Mahabharata was just dictated. Apparently, just like, okay, as soon as I start speaking, I'll tell you the whole story. It's the biggest story on Earth right now in terms of literature. And apparently the story behind it was this guy started talking. He says, okay, one thing that as soon as I start speaking, you don't stop talking. You don't stop writing. And they just continued, and apparently this whole story got told. But basically, passing down the tradition of the history, the ancient history of our planet, and the various kinds of beings that have been here. A lot of ancient cultures talk about sky beings. I mean, there's a whole other thing. You can get into that and go, days and weeks and months and get into that. But even the spiritual people, the spiritual sages of the age said, yes, we're not alone. There's other kinds of beings, and they describe them sometimes, and they would, describe how human beings can perceive things, and they kept records. So we have the allies of this long tradition that I've talked about, esoteric sciences, esoteric knowledge, you might say, that is basically, it's not secret. It's not supposed to be like hidden. It's just that most people don't go looking for it. It's unusual. It's different, and you have to start opening your mind and seeing how things work, because basically the ancient idea of the knowledge this was a science. It was like, these are repeatable things you can do. You can practice a meditation. You can open up your perception. You can understand how cosmos works. And I've talked in a lot of my videos about how it's a oneness thing. It's about the oneness. There's a one existence. If we get that basic thing through our understanding, it's a really simple, subtle thing. But in the meditation, there's a oneness of the perceiver and the perceived, that you, the being who's perceiving out of your eyes and listening to me right now, there's a oneness of consciousness that we share that is built into the fabric of this universe. And that's the fact. And you can argue it, but the thing is, you can experience it. And once you start experiencing a sort of connection, realizing, oh, well, a lot more makes sense now, okay? So what I try to do is tell people, look, just reflect within yourself, throw away some of the concepts, and realize that we have a lot of spiritual support on this planet, and galactic support and whatever, energy support, okay? Everything is timeless. It's all built in, nestled into each other. This is like, quantum science, whatever. There's a packing of the universe, you might say, an information plane, and it just manifests, okay? And there's a lot of science behind that and various technology. But the main thing I'm trying to say is, look, awake and be alert to your own potential and the spiritual aspect of going through a transition, so that when you can switch and adapt to a changing situation, it's like Tai Chi and all those kind of movements where, yeah, I'm not good at them, but just clever, smooth movements get you into a different state. Gets your body prepared, gets your mind prepared, and kind of adapt and dance with the whole thing, because we're going through a major, major transition right now, and it's affecting everything. This is the cosmic science, where new energy is coming into the solar system. The sun is doing something. It's affecting the entire solar system, and even right down to the last atom, the last little tiny little thing. It's an enormous process, like baking bread. When you bake the bread, it's like a whole metamorphosis. Every single piece of that loaf starts doing things, and changing and forming and so on. And when new energy comes into the cosmos, as we're just floating through the universe, going about our day, shopping at the Walmart or whatever, the sun's going on its way and carrying everybody with us, and we're like ants or little fleas on a dog's back, just going with it. And it's important for us to understand what our role is and how we can adapt. And the spiritual aspect of it is sharing information and sharing knowledge. And that's how cultures have transited through past debacles. And hopefully this time, in the next 25, 30 years, I'm 70 right now. I'm going to be 70 later this year. Hopefully we can make through the transition and have a whole preserved lot more than some of the other transitions, when everybody had to start over from scratch in a way, like the pyramids. Okay, one time there was a huge empire there with huge things that we can't even build today, and like, boom, it's gone. It's all flattened and has to start all over. And you find pyramids and old structures all around the world. If someone was here making some big ass things, and I don't know how they did it, but they did, because they're sitting there. So something happened, and then mankind went down. And so I hope I've inspired people. Please like and share. I know I don't have a lot of subscribers right now. I feel like I may be talking to myself, but no, I know a few people listen for sure, because I've had a lot of feedback over the years, and I have a lot of videos out there. So thanks again for listening, and I hope you watch some of my other videos. And please like and share, like I said, and subscribe, and make some comment, because I like interacting with people. I love that, and I hope to see you in some other videos.